All right, everyone. We will begin, and hopefully our friends will join us shortly. I guess we'll chat another couple minutes. It's 7 o'clock exactly. Yeah, we'll give them a couple of minutes. We'll give 5 minutes. Keep chatting. Sorry. I hear more people coming. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol neh b'dvaro.
Amen.
Dr. Pepper.
What's your favorite soda?
Dr. Pepper. If you look at my, so actually root beer, but call me fancy.
Okay.
I drink root beer on special occasions. I drink Dr. Pepper too much. It's ridiculous. If you look at my Walmart pickup orders, every once in a while, a printer, a coffee maker, something productive. Mostly it's Dr. Pepper and buffalo sauce. Holy homies. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Okay, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, not 8, not 9.
Wow, big turnout.
We have not 10. I think we have like 4 more people coming. We'll wait another wait another couple minutes. 3 more minutes. Noah's on his way.
Recorded too.
Noah? Coulter, right?
Noah Coulter, yeah. Noah said he can't come tonight, but he'll be in the class.
Yeah. I think they're all
Pretty good, how about you?
They're all getting pretty bad.
I like your sweater.
Thank you. I've never worn this one here before. It's actually a Hanukkah sweater. Never mind.
You just signed about that?
Brandon, did you
How was everyone's week so far? Almost over, thank Hashem.
Almost Shabbos.
Almost Shabbos.
Almost.
Baruch Hashem, almost Shabbos. Almost the Sabbath. Who here's done the drive to Jacksonville from Tallahassee?
What?
A few times. I've done it.
I think I have it down by heart at this point.
Oh wait, what did you say?
The drive from Tallahassee to Jacksonville.
Oh, I've done that with Sean when we went to New York.
It's not so bad.
It was the best thing ever.
2 hours 45. It's one highway, just,
It was
basically the whole way.
Best thing ever.
To Miami is way worse.
Awful.
Rabbi, you know, we drove Rabbi's pickup truck all the way there. You know?
Yeah.
It was so fun.
I'm sure you guys were very safe.
No, we weren't. We were. There was this car trying to pass us, and then we just. There was a car here, and we were right here. This car was trying to pass us, and we just kept the same speed, being mean to the guy behind us the whole entire time. It was kind of fun.
It's against the law in Florida.
Yeah, it was our entertainment. There was no cops.
Right? The law is,
on the left, yeah.
And you gotta pass?
Yeah, I know. I wasn't letting them know. It was entertainment.
you get arrested if you don't follow that law, but we can name the other laws you're allowed to break openly in this country now, and
right now.
wild.
FSU.
Things change quick. So it's a concept,
You think that's bad?
it's a legal theory basically that establishes in this country if you were to actually enforce every single law in the book, so everyone would go to prison. Who doesn't jaywalk? It's insanity.
You go to New York, look at
And that a reasonable assertion of legal authority is expected in every prosecution, otherwise the whole system falls apart.
Exactly.
So when a woman claims that you sexually assault her, and you say, I can't believe I'm doing this on a college campus, and you say, you may, whatever, it doesn't matter, that's not the point.
Okay.
Point is, in this country, courts are not supposed to in any way have taken on such a, in other words, the old concept of courts is to be unbiased,
Yeah.
right? That's the whole trust in law and order. In other words, I don't have to trust the cop. I have to trust that if I just listen to the cop in my way in front of a judge, so my case will be heard. And if I'm telling the truth, so it'll all work out. But if people lose trust in that, so jaywalking is the least of our problems, right?
Still, jaywalking was an actual law that people follow.
It still is. I mean, well, not that people follow, but it's still a law. I mean, I think also in Florida, it's a law. You're not allowed to tie your alligator within 10 feet of a pub, of a bar. You don't, but if you own, I don't, but if you own one in Florida, I believe the law.
Who has an alligator?
It's apparently this is someone who had an alligator and he tied it too close to a bar, and they made a law that you're not allowed to do this.
Definitely someone got bit by the alligator.
Okay, all right. All right, let's begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Quick disclaimer. My name is Rabbi Moshe. I am now what is considered a Hasidic rabbi, Hasidic Jew. I am a member of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, obviously. and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's how many of you have known me. I'm here for Shabbat, right? I work here as a rabbi, but that is not how I grew up. I grew up very similar to all of you. When I was 18, I was a student at University of Central Florida. Granted, I wasn't a very good one. I didn't last very long. Mostly, I went to the bars, and I remember I went to the Chabad house one time for the first, I think, Shabbat for my summer B, because that's where you get food before you go out with your friends. And I didn't have that much fun, and I realized that the alcohol was only 5%, and I could get whatever free stuff with my friends somewhere else, and that was it, and I never went back. And that was about almost 11 years ago, and here we are. Why do I say all this? Because the hope is that being a person such as myself, that this information that I'm going to try to teach, it's not to say that I went to Israel, I learned the same, so to speak, information all these other rabbis learn, but I learned much more of it. I'm the big gadol, now I can come and teach. Baruch Hashem, I learned a lot. But what I believe the real chiddush, so to speak, you would say in Hebrew, the real nuance that I can bring to the table is the fact that for most of my life I had a completely secular perspective. And it was only about 4 or 5 years ago that I made many changes, and here we are. But it was this material, not specifically this. I never took this class when I was at UCF. I had no interest. If you would have invited me, $500, doesn't matter how much money, I wouldn't have came. But I also, I don't know if I would have been prepared even to be willing to understand what the rabbi who put together this class is trying to teach. Now, this class is through Chabad on campus. We're going to be talking about the land of Israel and how it's not just this bordered property with such and such agriculture and sites that the Jews are obsessed with, and we just must have it. It's obviously a lot more significant than that, so we're going to be discussing that significance from the Jewish perspective, but also from a historical perspective, etc. Welcome, welcome. Good, thank you for joining us. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so we're introducing the class, explaining a little bit about myself. You guys know me a little bit, Baruch Hashem, my background, and my maybe, hopefully, unique perspective. But specifically, Chabad Lubavitch as a whole, within Judaism, obviously comes to offer a unique perspective, specifically the Lubavitch Rebbe's perspective, right? And it was that perspective that originally got me to make such drastic changes in my life that I am the person that I am today. Not the promise of gold and glory, Baruch Hashem, but in fact the words that my Rebbe writes, and that this rabbi tried to, I'll give him a citation in a moment, but this rabbi tried to condense for us so that together we can learn not just the surface level understanding of what the Torah is trying to explain to us about the land of Israel, but a real powerful and deep message that we can carry with us and help us understand what is Judaism, what is Israel, and why are the Jewish people so into this land. So with God's help now we'll begin. I'm going to go over the material with all of you and try to explain it as best I can. I then have in front of you a couple printed things I was inspired by that I want to read with you, and then we can begin a short optional Q&A session for those who wish to stick around. It will be optional though, so at that point, if you wish to leave, you'll have completed your requirement for the class for the day. Okay? There's no homework. There's no... the expectation is, as best as each of us is capable of focusing and really hopefully walking away with something that actually affects us. If we get any of that, we succeeded. And obviously, attendance is key. So thank you all so much for coming. And now we'll begin. So food for thought. The leading character in Jewish history is who? Moshe Rabbeinu, we say in Hebrew. Moses, our teacher, right? Moses. Every non-Jew in the world has heard of this person, the prophet Moses. And in the life and story of Moses, we don't get, obviously, all of his life. In fact, the first 70 so years we have very little of. We have his upbringing in the castle. We have his escape from the castle with Pharaoh in Egypt. And then the next 40 years of his life, essentially, we don't have. And then he comes back and takes the Jewish people out of Egypt. But his personal life, obviously, is not discreetly written so much. And in the Midrashim and in the Gemara and etc., still not so much his personal life. But we can gain a greater understanding. Who was this person, Moses? And why is he one of the most famous people in the world and the leader of the Jewish people for all time? And specifically now, why was he so obsessed with this idea of entering the land of Israel with the Jewish people? So, the question the rabbi asked us to discuss, right, just to real quick give credit to the rabbi who put together this class, the Shliach of the University of California at St. Cruz, Rabbi Shlomi Chaim, and expanded and written by Rabbi Levi Potesh. Thank you both. Okay. Have you ever wanted something that you were determined enough not to take no for an answer? And how many times have you asked the person for this thing? Whether it was a program to travel once a month, once a week. Okay, I'm going to try to rephrase. Do you remember when you were a child and you had the feeling in your heart of really wanting something and having just been told no? That's sinking, oh. Or perhaps even worse, that you were maybe, heaven forbid, promised something. You were expecting it, you were excited for it. And then, for whatever reason, by circumstance, by a mistake, by this or that, when the day came and you were finally going to get it, you don't get it. And that heart-wrenching, feeling. Okay. So Moshe is recorded in the Torah. In the 5 books of Moses, it's recorded that Moses prayed 515 times to enter with the Jewish people the land of Israel. So, needless to say, God ultimately telling him no would not have been. This is clearly not a child. This is a very refined person who's obviously he's the leader of the Jewish nation. He took them out of Egypt, and his mission is not complete if he doesn't enter the land of Israel. So that's the starting point. When Moshe was leading the Jewish people through the desert, God instructed him to speak to a rock that it would provide water for the Jewish people. There were 3 miracles that accompanied the Jewish people through the desert. There was an incredible cloud, the clouds of glory, in the merit of Aaron, Moshe's brother. There was mun that would flow from heaven in the merit of Moses himself. Food that you would eat and taste like anything, but it wouldn't stuff you. It wasn't like getting a Chipotle double steak burrito. It was more like having a really good workout and then a protein shake with a small piece of chicken that just stuffed you up and gave you exactly what you needed, but didn't really make you want to go pass out and call it a day. And this actually would become very frustrating for the Jewish people. And Moshe himself, frustrated with the struggles of the Jewish people, instead of speaking to the rock, what's the story? What do we know?
Bush.
No, this was the burning bush. The rock that would provide water for the Jewish people in the merit of Miriam, Moshe's sister, the prophetess, that Moshe hit the rock. Yeah. This was actually a different rock, but similar. And water gushed forth. And so from this, Moshe was punished, and he was not allowed to enter the land of Israel. Now, this seems a little extreme from a baseline perspective. Right? Moshe leads the Jewish people for 40 years. He makes one mistake. He screams at a rock. It's not even a person. It's a rock. Who cares? He can't complete his life's mission. Doesn't quite add up from the beginning. Let's read more. Okay. So to understand a little bit about Moshe and his desire to enter the land, we have to understand about the Torah itself, the 5 books of Moses, the history of the Jewish people, and how Israel fits in the analog, in the, I don't want to say story, but in the chronology, in the life of Torah, and how Israel is not just a very nice physical location, but really it's a quintessential part of this entire thing that we're talking about: Torah, Judaism, Israel. So first, we're going to understand that obviously the history of Israel didn't begin in 1948. Jonas, please join us. And we're talking about the state of Israel now relative to Israel as it's understood by the Jewish people. The modern state of Israel was established in 1948, right? And if you would ask a normal person why Israel was established, they would tell you Holocaust, right? There was a terrible event that happened to the Jewish people. The British people had this vassal land called Palestine, and perhaps it was too big a headache for them anyway, and their empire was collapsing. But either way, they gave it to the Jewish people as a sign of good faith, and this is what leads to all the territorial conflict, etc. Okay, but why this piece of land? Yeah.
I heard that they were talking about giving Jewish people like a state like a long time before the Holocaust.
So, since I believe, the early 20th century, the discussion of giving the Jewish people their own homeland again in European intellectual circles. Noah, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting.
No, all good. Come on. Was discussed. There's no doubt. And conspiracy theorists really like this. It fuels also a lot of Holocaust denial. Welcome, fellas. Thank you for coming. Please join us.
What's up, Moshe?
Great to see you. Come on in. So we're talking about how the Jews control the weather. And no, we're talking about how there's the secular perspective of how the Jewish people attained the land of Israel. There was a terrible Holocaust, and obviously the British mandate allowed that the Jewish people could occupy the land, and that the land at the time known as Palestine, the territory. And we're discussing that Israel is obviously not just this corner territory, machlekes argument between the different nations of who was going to, that it's more to the Jewish people than just this piece of land. We're not just obsessed with this random corner of the world. And we're discussing why. And that Israel is a fundamental, quintessential part of what it means actually to be a Jewish person in general. Not just the physical land, but also the concept. Okay. So, we're going to bring now a pasuk. We're going to bring now a few psukim, a few verses from Bereshis, from the book of creation. Vayomer Hashem al Avram, Lech lecha me'artzecha imim. Oh, it's not going to be in your sheets. Apologies. We had source sheets for you guys, and they didn't sync up with the teacher's manual, so you guys could just listen, and we're going to go to what's printed in front of you at the end of the class. Vayomer Hashem el Avraham, and Hashem spoke to Avraham, Lech lecha, that you should go me'artzecha, from your land, umimoladecha, umibeis avicha el haaretz asher arecha, from your birthplace and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. Vayomer LaAvraham, and a few verses later, Yadoya, Teda ki ger, Yiyeh zaracha be'eretz leilahem, Vavadum ve'inu Isam arba me'oishana. And he said, Hashem said to Avram, you shall surely know that your seed will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and they will enslave them and oppress them for 400 years. And a few psukim later. Bayimahu, on that day, Karas Hashem es Avram, that a covenant was formed, a commitment was formed between God and Abraham. Baris Lamor, Lezaracha, Nasati es haaretz hazois, Min har Mitzrayim ad hanaar hagadol nehar pras. To your seed I have given this land from the river of Egypt until the great river, to the Euphrates river. Es hakeni ves haknizi ves hakadmoni ves hachiti ves hamprizi ves raphoim ves haamori ves haknani ves hagirgashi ves hayevushi. That God is going to give to Abraham, just one moment, the land of these nations who occupied this area at the time we knew as Canaan. Question.
Did you say from the river to the sea?
Did I say from the river to the sea? I don't think that I did.
No, it's the Euphrates.
Oh,
Whatever.
so ironically enough, that's obviously exactly the phrase. It's actually a little more than that, right? Because the river to the sea is the east-west boundary. The northern boundary means Iraq's going to have to skadooch a little bit, and as if everyone's going to miss their current government. And also Lebanon, obviously, is anyone going to miss at least South Lebanon and Northern Lebanon? I don't know. Wonderful people, I'm sure many of them, right? Are these stable, healthy governments that actually care for their own people? It seems that Northern Lebanon is also run by a government that allowed Hezbollah to store weapons in their port that then blew up and killed how many civilians? So those people, the civilians, would prefer that government to a Jewish state, and then allowing them to live freely in a proper whatever it might be. But in other words, I'm not suggesting, heaven forbid, that the Israeli government's about to move into Lebanon and kick everyone out. I have no idea what the Israeli government may or may not have planned. They definitely don't let me know. I'm suggesting from a Torah perspective, regardless from any actual practical application at the moment, that to suggest that somehow living under a Jewish state would be a horrible situation for the Lebanese people, that's not,
In the Torah, that says that that's the land that was promised.
From the east-west boundary, yes. From the river to the sea, essentially. Please don't quote me on that. That's how I break the Twitter. Wonderful. Blenator. Okay. Continuing.
You said from the river to the sea, it's ours.
That's the point, right? Yeah, exactly. I was just hoping a different rabbi would be the one to say it, but ideally, I mean, Moses said it, right? Don't blame him. Don't shoot the messenger, right? That's an American phrase. That's not mine. I'm just the messenger. Baruch Hashem. Although in this case, no, it's okay. Aim the fire at me. All right, Baruch Hashem. So we understand that Abraham, when he was given this command, did not have children. So we're talking about not just an adult, not just a made man, not just, you might call the first entrepreneur, which Abraham was. Brilliant man. He discovered the creator of the universe all on his own. He discovered there was a plan. He learned how to communicate with the creator. And essentially, through his own actions and good deeds and authentic desire to want to be within this creator's world, became the father of the nation that would ultimately carry out God's mission in this world. So a very immense person, right? That's why you're all such wonderful people, Baruch Hashem, because Grandpa was the man, okay? So Grandpa didn't have any kids yet. Abraham, and God sends him on this journey. And he sends him to a land that we understand in Jewish mysticism represents the 10 faculties of the soul. In Kabbalah, in Jewish mysticism, God makes the world, yes, and he does so through a blueprint. He doesn't just make it up as he goes. He has a means by which he creates the world. This is called Torah. And in a step back away from the reality, from the way that we see it, if we could see reality from the top to the bottom, we would see that every layer of reality is created with 10 attributes that are all intertwined with one another and make up one general means by which God interacts in the world. These are called Sefirot. And there are 3 intellectual, Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at, which is the acronym for Chabad, the organization we sit in. These represent the 3 intellectual attributes. That's why in Chabad we so insist on teaching Torah and learning Torah. It's the very purpose of this organization is to spread Torah Sachasidis, the essential teachings of Torah. So that's the top spheres that God makes the world with. And then Chagas, the 7 emotive attributes, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Chod, Yesod, Malchus. Did I miss one? I think I got them all. Baruch Hashem. Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Chod, Yesod, Malchus. Exactly. And the land of Canaan at the time represented an unrefined, so to speak, version of these spheres, of this potential. God comes to make the world. I said it all in Hebrew. I'll do it in English. Sorry. Through Chokhmah represents the idea of an initial inspiring thought, like a light bulb that comes on in your head. Bina means understanding. It represents the expounding of details. And Das means understanding. It represents the embodiment of an idea. When a person goes through a real experience in life and they learn a deep lesson from it, the details of the lesson, so they might not really, how this applies in different areas of their life, but they learn something. They learn something powerful. They can't really explain it to you, maybe they can't put it into words, but they learn something. So that's called Das. They experience something very, very real. So ideally this should occur from a thought, a chokhmah, an inspiration, and then this inspiration, to give a metaphor, I want to build a building. I'm inspired to build a building. I have the plan in I can see what it's going to look like, and the colors, and the size, and the people, and etc. And now I need to put into practicality. I'm going to make a physical blueprint. This would be called Bina, breaking down the details. And then Das would be turning on the light switch and living in your building and understanding all the details. And like, wow, I did this. Okay. So God, when He goes to make the worlds, He does it in these 3 steps. So it's not by random. And then how is it practically applied? Through the emotive attributes: Chesed, kindness, Gevurah, translated as severity, but really means like self-restraint, strength. Tiferes, which is beauty, which means the combination of these two, right? Obviously, we understand the basic concept of giving, of love, right? I love you, I want to give something to you, I'll give you some money, right? If you're a heroin addict and I love you, I'm not going to give you any money. It's a bad idea. So we're going to call this gevura. Restricting oneself is actually a deeper form of love, right? And then Tiferes is the heroin addict got sober, now I'm going to help him go to college and change his whole life, etc., right? Beauty, finding the balance between pure kindness, pure severity, where they come together. And then Netzach, victory, Hayid Yisaid. I am missing one. Hayid Yisaid. No, I'm not. And Malchus. Victory, connection, strength, connection, and kingship. Okay, kingship meaning Malchus, the final attributes. What is a king? King's in charge, right? You can't say no to the king. The king tells you to do something, you do it or you die. Heaven forbid. But you do it, right? God makes the world. Nothing in the world says, no, God, I'm good. Only people do that. God tells the grass to grow, the grass grows. God tells the chair to stay and to be so we can sit on it, it stays. God tells the ocean to split, the water to split, the Yam Suf to split, so the water splits. It's only people who, heaven forbid, could choose to go against God. Okay. And so, Abraham, who did not have a child when he was originally promised the land, and then traveled to it, had his second son Yitzchak. Abraham actually represented the attributes, nice, of chesed, of kindness. And for all those who couldn't see, there was about 2.5 minutes of consistent laughter because the fly that was jumping around and our boy Jeremy smacked it right out of the way. Iskadov Iskadosh. He's out of here. All right. We'll bury him later, Blenator. Give him a ceremony. He lived a powerful life this flight. Okay. So Isaac, who was, as many of you I'm sure have heard the story of Isaac, who was to be sacrificed on behalf of Abraham's commitment to God on the altar, and then God sent an angel to stop him because obviously the intention was never for Isaac to die, but the Chassidus behind it, that the essential aspect of Torah comes to teach that this idea of self-sacrifice is actually the deepest layer of connection that a person can have with God. And Isaac was so ready to sacrifice his life for Hashem that even though God stopped him, his own desire and the fact that it literally came into fruition, so to speak, there was actually a moment in time where Isaac's soul had left his body, even though he wasn't killed. And from this place, he was given a new soul and saw the world from an increasingly, infinitely brand new perspective. And then that soul came back into his body, and he was a completely different person for the rest of his life. By the time he couldn't even see, by the time he passed, not died. That never should be a blessing, because sight would have been standing in his way, so to speak. He saw the world from a purely spiritual perspective. He was a sacrifice, a perfect altar to Hashem, and he saw the world from a perfectly godly perspective. And then Yaakov, his child, Jacob, would be the one to father the Jewish nation, renamed Israel at a later date. As a Yisrael comes from the name Yirah Kael, the fear of God. But not fear in awe, inspired fear, respected fear. The fear a person has for the king, the beloved king, though, not the feared king, the beloved king. I wouldn't go against my beloved king also because I'm afraid of the consequences, but really because I'm afraid, heaven forbid, of losing my connection to the king. The king knows me. We got a whole situation. I'm the king's chef. I'm the king's this. He likes. We got a great thing going. Heaven forbid I should ruin that. So that's Yaakov. Okay. And now we're going to connect the idea. The rabbi brings a few more psukim. I won't read them, but basically just explaining that Torah is not just a book of history, it's also a book of instruction. Torah comes from the word in Hebrew hora'ah, which means instruction. That the entire chronological breakdown of Torah, the reason why it's not in chronological order, etc., all these things can be answered. It's a book of instruction for the Jewish person, and literally for the world, on how it's to behave, how it's to live, how it's to exist. Okay. And now we're going to bring a question from the Gemara. Rather, not a question. We're going to bring a statement. Mi she'ein lo bayis, eino adam. Whoever is not a house is not a person, is not complete. Okay? So, who's ever been homeless before? Heaven forbid. Anyone? So I have, unfortunately. Thank God. All for a greater purpose, and I'm not anymore. But I was for a significant period of time. And the first thing a person, I'm sure you'll understand this immediately, appreciates after having been homeless is how much they did not appreciate what they had when they felt like they had everything, so to speak, right? When you're a kid. Reasonable enough, even as a person, a college student who has to do laundry for the first time, so probably you all appreciate mommy a little more, right? But to take it to a much more extreme measure, the Jewish people are likened to being homeless. Yes? We had a home. We were kicked out of this home. But what does it mean, truly, to have a home? Okay. So, in short, the home is the place where a person is comfortable. Okay? So, but not just in the college level play video game sense, right? In a very deep sense, right? Even in a place where you're struggling, let's say, with your partner and you're married, but this is overall a very healthy relationship. So even in a place of struggle, you're in an immense place of vulnerability. And there's a trust and an understanding and a connection that wouldn't hopefully damage that. And all these types of things. So the home is a place where a person, not just in the positive sense, but also in the negative sense, a home is a place where a person can truly be themselves, whatever that means. Okay? Now, in the physical world, this is expressed in three general ways. We have a universe. That's the first one. And in the universe, right, the universe is made up of space. The second one is we have this thing called time. And the third is that we have a thing called a nefesh. We have a thing called a soul. And these are three different expressions of how land and having a house can be a means by which truly expressing who you are. Because there are certain things you, so to speak, cannot do if you do not have a home. What's an example? I'm trying to give a quicker example. Let's say it like this. Everyone here has heard of the phrase cognitive dissonance. Okay. Everyone has in some way, shape, or form experienced this thing called cognitive dissonance, where an emotion is so overwhelming in the moment, it's slightly blocked to the side. The person pretends like they're not really experiencing it somewhat, right? Not even necessarily a conscious thing I have to tell myself. I continue the interaction, the situation, and then by the time I go home, now it floods me. The emotion comes, the thoughts come, and suddenly the cognitive dissonance is gone, and I have these two generally contradicting ideas or feelings that will come crashing, right? So this is a perfect example of what it would feel like to be not at home. Is that fair to say? To be uncomfortable. Okay. A professional bicyclist who spent 20 years training to be a bicyclist. And they wake up every single time in the morning to train to be a bicyclist. And they eat exactly the same time every day to be a bicyclist. They need 6,000 calories of carbohydrates every day, and 240 grams of protein every day, and 113 grams of fat from this source every day, and 7 grams of avocado juice, and this and that and the other. And they do it every day for 20 years. After a while, this is the home. In other words, when you're building it, it's difficult. But you ever gone to the gym for 6 months straight, and then by the time you miss a week at the gym, it's like, oh, what am I doing in my life? I feel like I'm like, oh, like I need to express myself. Like I gotta, go for a run. It's a different, you're lacking, right? When you first start going to the gym, is that how you feel? Not so much. Okay. So in a home, I mean, even in the most simple sense, have you ever moved into a new apartment? Do you feel at home in the first second you're there? No. You put your stuff down, you set up, and even the first night, you're not going to, maybe a week, maybe a month, whatever, and then one day's going to come and you're going to realize you're throwing your shoes off, you're sitting back, you're cooking your food, you're making a mess, you don't even care it's clean anymore, because now it's your home. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't care it's clean. But there's a comfortability and an ease. Oh, that's the word I'm looking for. There's an ease and a seamlessness that comes with a person who's in and comfortable in their own home. Fair to say? Okay. Now, if the Jewish people are a spiritual people, if the idea of Judaism is not just the fact that we are all physically here and being Jewish, and that our mothers are Jewish, and that we're circumcised, etc., that there's a real mission and goal, so then the ability to achieve that mission is going to completely be intertwined with how easily and comfortably we will feel, so to speak, in our own homes, because they are not separate things. In other words, that Israel, as the metaphor I said before, as the 10 faculties by which God comes to create the world, aligned with him, right? Because we know that there are the 10 faculties of godliness as they can be unrefined. We said before, the 10 nations that Abraham had to intercede with, and Moshe and the Jewish people, we conquered 7 of the nations, right? And then it says when Mashiach comes, we'll conquer the other 3, the intellectual ones. But that to conquer these nations, physically, yes, we had to win these wars. Spiritually, what did it mean? That the kindness within myself, the severity within myself, go down the list. That these things had to be conquered within myself, within the Jewish nation as a whole, and then this land that we call Israel will be able to serve us as a place where we're able to fulfill our mission. As opposed to, now I can bring this pasuk before that I wasn't sure why he put it here, but now I understand why he did. He said, Ve'eschem ezare v'gayim v'harikaisi acharechem charev v'haisar artzechem shamama v'arechem yiyu charba. That I will scatter you among the nations, and I will unsheathe the sword after you. Your land will be desolate, and your cities will be laid to waste. That the Torah sometimes comes with harsh, sounds like punishments against the Jewish people. And it's like, whoa. 5 seconds ago we're getting married atop a mountain. Now we're getting kicked out of our land. So, okay, that's one way to look at it, right? But that's a childish, so to speak, way to look at it in the sense of, okay, I got punished, so God kicks me away from home. No. There's this place. It's called Israel. It's designed, so to speak, physically and spiritually in a way where the Jewish person can serve and function properly serving God. And if the Jewish person does not heed to the commandments and does not properly serve God, the land itself will spit you out. And the swords will come after you. It's not a threat. It's called action and consequence, right? It's called... We live in a world of response, right? I'm not going to get upset at my pen for falling if I lift it and let go of it. That's the natural response. Torah is not telling you, in other words, the punishments in Torah, the way they're delivered, so to speak, as punishments so that we can understand severity and consequence and pain so that we are encouraged not to do things. But there's a matter of emes, and there's truth, and there's living inside of the truth. And if I find myself, heaven forbid, outside of it, I'm going to feel the consequence. And that's what it means, heaven forbid, to not listen to Hashem's Torah. Okay. But now again, going back to the land. That the Jewish nation as a whole we're called Or Lagoyim, that we're a light unto the nations, but we're called Lagoy Kadosh. We're called a holy nation. That the purpose of the Jewish people to be a light to the nations, that is what it means to be Jewish. And that Israel, as a physical land, as a place where the Jewish people can have a home, is essential to actually practically satisfying this mission. And now we can go back and understand why I went on a whole spiel at the beginning of the class. Why was Moshe Rabbeinu so obsessed with the idea of entering the land of Israel? Because this was not, to him, a matter of personal achievement or finalizing his dreams, or it's a real nice beach and they got great restaurants in Gaza. That's not why Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to enter the land. It's not why Moses wanted to enter. He wanted to enter because he understood that if he could lead the Jewish people into the land of Israel and help them establish the land of Israel, the physical land of Israel, that even spiritually, this accomplishment, we would have never been kicked out of the land. It would have been, Mashiach, he would have been, so to speak, Mashiach, and that would have been it. But that is exactly what Hashem himself did not want. And, I was going to say unfortunately, but Chas v'shalom, fortunately for us, because we're all here, and this is what Hashem wanted, that the exiles would continue, and obviously Jewish history has gone a long way since 3,335 years, I believe, since we were at Matan Torah together, since we received the Torah. But this is what Moshe wanted. That Shabbos, that the idea of the Sabbath, which is going back to the idea of time, 6 days of the week, and on the seventh we rest, that the Jewish nation and that the land of Israel, these three sides are actually of one coin, that the mission of the Jewish nation is the Jewish nation, the place where we fulfill the mission is the Jewish people. The Jewish people are an expression, so to speak, of God himself in this world. And that to lack any one of these pieces, and that the Torah, God's Torah, is the blueprint by which we understand how to interact with God and his world. And that if we live by these three blueprints, that literally everything comes into place. We achieve the purpose of our creation. And, well, that'll be it. All evil will be dispelled from the world, and it will be good from now until all eternity. So, l'chaim, Mashiach should come immediately, and that should be our reality. I have in front of you guys, we're going to do just a couple more minutes here. I have in front, you mind if I? Just a few things that inspired me this week that I want to read with you. So if you could flip, please, to the second sheet. I'm going to quickly read. By the Rebbetzin Mashi Lipsker of South Africa, sent by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1972 with her husband. My name is Masha Lipsker. I was born in 1949 in Brooklyn, New York. Not me. I'm Moshe Yitzchak. When I was 4, my parents moved to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where my father, Rabbi Aaron Popak, took a job at the behest of the previous Rebbe, the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe, as the director of the Beis Yaakov Seminary. When I was growing up in Philadelphia after the war, it was a brave new world where all Jews really wanted was to be American. When I completed high school, my dream job was to go to university. We can imagine now, as college students, how strong the pull is to be a normal American and not be like the silly rabbi with the silly strings and all the silly things these Jews are doing. How strong the pull is now, so we can understand after World War II how strong this pull would have been, right? Okay. And when Masha Lipsker, Rebbetzin Lipsker, completed high school, her dream was to go to university and become a journalist. And I thought that as a journalist out in the world, I could best help spread the message of the Chabad movement. But my parents felt that this was no occupation for an observant girl and that I should go to Beis Yaakov Seminary instead. There was no way I wanted to become the stereotypical Beis Yaakov girl. Beis Yaakov girls seemed to me like little copies of each other, and obviously I didn't want to become a copy of anyone. My father consulted the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who suggested that instead of Beis Yaakov, I should come to Crown Heights, the Chabad headquarters, and attend Beis Rivka. And this is what I did, a different seminary. Beis Rivka was a sorry sight. The school had no money for electricity, and we were freezing. When it rained, the rain came in. I would call my parents crying my eyes out. My father advised me, the Rebbe told you to go there, so you would have to tell the Rebbe about this. I wrote to the Rebbe, and after the midterm break, Beis Rivka reopened in a better location. I realized then how much the Rebbe listened to everyone, how much he cared about individuals and their needs. I studied in Beis Rivka for 2 years, and then my parents asked me to return home. I got a job teaching 2nd grade. It was a year of tremendous growth and learning, but I was very, very lonely. I spent all my time at home preparing my lessons and going back to work, and I couldn't wait for the summer when I could join my friends at camp. I had attended Camp Gan Israel in Detroit as a camper for 5 years, and now I wanted to work there as a camp counselor. When I applied in the spring, I heard we're not organizing yet, and when I tried again a month later, I was told, sorry, but we filled all the places. And the Rebbetzin says that she was heartbroken. That's when I decided to appeal to the Rebbe to return to Crown Heights, because I couldn't imagine another year of loneliness in Philadelphia. I came to 770 and waited in line with all the ladies, clutching my written request. When it was my turn, the Rebbe read what I had written and asked, but you say here that you've had great success as a teacher in Philadelphia. Why would you want to leave? And the Rebbetzin blurted out, very emotionally, because I don't have any friends. And the Rebbe looked very thoughtfully at the Rebbetzin and said, you can come back to Crown Heights and teach here in September, but what will you do for the summer? And at that, the Rebbetzin completely broke down and started crying. And she told him that I had wanted to be a counselor at Gan Israel, but there was some sort of misunderstanding and confusion, and there's no space. And the Rebbe responded, what sort of misunderstanding, what sort of confusion? You belong there. And then she informed the head of the staff that the Rebbe wanted her to come to Camp Gan Israel, and she was told again, there's no place. And she remember saying, well, it's the Rebbe's camp. What are you going to tell the Rebbe? There's no space. And that was that. She was offered the job that no one else wanted. You see, because the Rebbe had suggested that at every meal at the camp there should be a teaching of Jewish law, halacha, but during meals it's very hard to keep the kids quiet and paying attention. So they asked her, do you want to do this? And she said she'll take it. That's when I learned that the best way to get across a dry teaching is to couch it inside a story. I came equipped with stories, and I had no problem. When I stood up, they listened, and I was successful. And I feel that, although I didn't want to be a teacher, the Rebbe saw the potential in me, and he found a way to bring it out. He didn't just issue a command, you should do this. He said, let me take you there. This was an incredible kindness on his part, and his guidance has continued to carry me and support me throughout my life. To this day, I draw on it. The speaking skills that I developed back then helped me enormously later. When my husband and I became the Rebbe's emissaries in South Africa, today I actually have a weekly radio show in Johannesburg. Could you imagine? As a kid, scared to maybe teach and this and to speak publicly and to take the advice of your holy master. What are you going to do? The Lubavitcher Rebbe tells you you're good at something, you can do it. You're going to say no? You give it your best. 40 years later, you have a podcast. You have a radio show. To us, even cooler if it was a podcast, right? But back then, radio, that was the podcast. It'd be our show. Okay. Before we got married, we had an audience with the Rebbe, and we requested a blessings for our life together. I asked my husband to write in the blessing a request for a warm home. And he dutifully wrote it down, but afterwards he said that he thought it was strange. And how could we not have a warm home? She says, I guess in the back of my mind, I was afraid that I didn't have what it takes to create a warm home. Chash v'shalom. Heaven forbid. I was a very bookish person. I could develop a teaching curriculum, prepare worksheets, speak to groups, but I wasn't a hostess. I didn't know how to welcome guests. This was something that never developed in me. And so when we came before the Rebbe, he gave us many blessings, and then suddenly he said, now about having a warm home. And the Rebbetzin perked up. So the Rebbe says, if you want to have a warm home, see to it that you make it warm for the other. And then it will be naturally warm for you. As it says in Proverbs, for the lamp is a mitzvah, and the Torah is light. It took me a while to process that blessing. But with time, I began to see this as the Rebbe's guidance for my interpersonal life, as if the Rebbe was giving me kind, fatherly advice, saying in a nutshell, you're going to have to learn to see the other. You're going to have to learn to see what the other wants and the other needs in order for you to feel fulfilled. That has to do with your children, your husband, your siblings, and your parents, whoever comes into your space. Of course, the same applies, and if I may add, perhaps even more so, this applies to our relationship with God. Seeing and understanding what God wants, or as Rabbi Manis Friedman likes to say, what Hashem needs from you. To continue your cycle of blessings, seek to make this world warm for God, and then you will feel warm. I realize now that this is a teaching with endless layers to it, endless applications, and that the Rebbe gave me and my husband a gift which we could unpack forever. Very heavy, and now I will end, with God's help, with two very famous phrases, or rather aphorisms, attributed to the founder of the Hasidic movement, the Heilige Baal Shem Tov, the holy master of the good name. That the Baal Shem Tov was orphaned from his father, the hidden tzaddik, Rabbi Eliezer, at the age of 5. The last words spoken to the Baal Shem Tov by his holy father before his passing were, Yisraelik, fear nothing but Hashem alone. Love every Jew without exception, with the full depth of your heart, and with the fire of your soul, no matter who he is or how he behaves. And then a very famous teaching from the Baal Shem Tov, that every single thing that a person sees or hears is an instruction to him in his conduct in the service of God. Thank you all so much for joining our first My Israel class with 5 more to go. And we can now begin the Q&A if anyone has any questions. That's how you know Baruch Hashem is a great class. No questions? Come on. No, it doesn't have to be related to the class. Thank you all very much. That was the required portion for the day. If anyone has to go, you're more than welcome to, and I much appreciate you guys. But I promised a Q&A, so if anyone has a fun question, a silly question, a difficult question, thank you so much. Please feel free to ask, and also make sure to sign in before you leave if you did not. No, please. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I think the sheet, I think Justin has the sheet. I think this is a different sheet. Sign-in sheet is... Do we have the sign-in sheet somewhere over there? Justin, you had the sign-in sheet.
Over there.
He gave it to you.
We'll sign on this for now, and then...
I don't know. So then I give it to you. I was the last one to do it, right?
I might have it. Hold on. I got it. I apologize. I was just checking, make sure you're still awake. Okay. Thank you all so much, Mamish. Literally. But yes. All right. You have a question?
Yeah, so when Moses brought the Jews to Israel, was that their first time? Like, where did we start? Like, I thought we started in Israel.
Abraham, no. So Isaac and Jacob lived in Israel, and Abraham. What's your name, my friend? Brandon, we met before, right? You came from Chabad?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great to see you.
Nice to see you.
Did you sign up on the link? Did you get the link?
I did not. I didn't sign up on it.
So just write your info here, and I'll try to get you guys on tomorrow. It should be fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for coming.
What's up, buddy?
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Okay. Brandon, sorry.
Yeah.
So my question was,
today.
like, where did the Jews start? Because we didn't start in Israel, right? That's what God gave it to us.
Thank you for that, John.
Is that our first time?
No. So yes, as a nation, it was our first time there, right? And it wasn't Israel at the time; it was Canaan. It was literally a different, so to speak, not country. It was a collection of countries.
Where was the first Jew?
So Abraham is the first Jew. Right?
Where did he live?
So he lived in the middle of Iraq, basically. But he traveled when God told him to leave his home and his birthplace and to go. So he went to the land of Israel. And he was the first one there, and then there was other people living there, right? But for the
first Jew there,
and then he had Yitzchak who lived there, and Yitzchak lived every day of his life in the land of Israel. Then Yaakov was born and raised there, but then he left and then came back and then left and then came back and then ultimately left and passed in Egypt.
How did we get to Egypt?
Jacob with the children, with the 12 tribes, went to Egypt with Yosef. Remember, Yosef was sold into slavery. And then there was a famine in Israel. They needed food. And they had to leave to go to Egypt because there was a famine. And then slowly, after Yaakov passed, after Yosef passed, a few hundred years later, they got enslaved.
And they came back.
And then they escaped the enslavement with Moses and come back to Israel.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
That's the full cycle.
Gotcha. Okay. I enjoyed the class. See you tomorrow, I'm sure. Right? Tomorrow, of course, yeah. That's
Guys, can we get one quick picture before everyone leaves?
Yeah.
One quick photo? Let's do it. Come on, everyone just gather up by Justin.